we'll move on now to the storyline that I've got here, guys, and I do think it is a pretty big one, and we're already talking about it early on here, but it's that between Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit, like which one of these three teams will be the one to push through and get into the playoffs. I think is a big storyline to follow, and as Elliot Friedman put it pretty accurately this week, it's like that Spider-Man meme with all the Spider-Men standing around. They're all pointing at each other, like which one is it going to be? And yeah, it just seems like between these three teams, like they're so good at giving us false sense of hope.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and they're all right around the same record, kind of 500 out of the gate. It's like, oh, okay, like win 3 in a row, lose 3 in a row, bad game here, bad game there, good game here, good game there, and so they've all got long playoff droughts at this point. Obviously, the Sabres, unfortunately, they have the longest at 13, but that's the storyline I'm going with is which one of Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit will be able to finally push through and get into the playoffs as a wild card team, I would expect. So that's what I'm going with.
Well, it's a good storyline for us to keep track of because I think it hits, near and dear to us as well as, our family members and fans around this location because it seems like everyone is a Senators fan or a Habs fan, a Leafs fan. I know a few Detroit fans and I know one weirdo.
Sabres fan.
Sabres fan. So yeah, it's near and dear. It's one that I'm always tracking because I have ties to the Senators and like to keep an eye on them. Watch the game last night, gutsy win in overtime over Boston, and I think they have it in them, and things just never seem to all click at once. With if everything's clicking at the same time for really any of these teams, but in particular Ottawa, in my eyes, it's like they can do it. The pieces are there. Allmark looked really good last night, so if he could be that guy for the rest of the season, I like what I'm seeing there. And Buffalo's got that high threat level of scoring that could be around. It's just we're waiting for it to kick off, and once it does, they're scary. So yeah, it's going to be interesting because something's got to change from the status quo in the Atlantic Division, and we need a little bit of variety in there.
Yeah, totally. But when I look at the standings, I look at these teams, I got to tell you, I don't have much confidence in one of the bottom four teams in the Atlantic taking a step. And I think the only way it happens if a team like the Bruins drops off, because I think Tampa Bay, they've got their warts, but I think they're going to be fine. Toronto and Florida are clearly going to be fine. So then it's like Boston is the team to drop off, and I picked them to win the division this year because I think they're better than what they've looked like throughout their first, 10 to 15 games. So I don't know, like it's tough. If I had to pick a team that I'm most confident about, I would say the Sabres because on paper, they should be the best team out of those bottom four, but they just have this culture of losing that they've had for at least the last 13 years when they haven't made the playoffs. And it's just not a good look on the team. So I'm not really sure how it's going to shake out, but I got to tell you, like the Maple Leafs played the Red Wings and the Habs over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, back to back. And I got to tell you, both of those teams, just not much there. Like in the Detroit game, the Leafs only won by a couple goals, and one of them was an empty netter. But outside of that top line, like there's just nothing going on there. And then like their defense is awful, and like on paper and like through the eye test watching that game. And if it wasn't for Cam Talbot, like I don't know where this team would be. They'd probably be at the bottom of the league right now, and they're pretty close already anyways. And then Montreal, like, normally this team brings their absolute best against the Maple Leafs and treats it like a game 7 every time. And who knows, if they matched up in the playoffs right now, Montreal might even beat them in a 7-game series again. But boy, they looked bad on Saturday, just like not a good hockey team, a team that's not even close. And the Leafs play Ottawa coming up here in a couple days. And, again, I know the Senators are going to play like it's game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I just haven't been impressed from what I've seen. And that's a team who's been needing to take a step for years now. So I don't know, until I see something of promise from any of those bottom 4 teams, I just can't bet on any of them taking a spot. It's just it's like we talked about last year coming up to the playoffs. Case, I think you called it the playoff crawl in the Metro Division between it was the Capitals and Philadelphia, and I think the Penguins, I think, were in there, the playoff crawl, and no one wanted points. They were just throwing points away. And that's what it seems like, especially with these interdivisional games here between these teams. It's like no one even wants these points. They're just throwing them away. There's no fight from any of these bottom 4 teams. So until I see something that impresses me, I just can't see any of them taking that step, but I would like to see it. And Harp, I need to bring this up as well. I was talking to Adam about it on the weekend. Tage Thompson, quietly, has 10 goals, is second in the NHL technically in goals. So, that's something. You need other guys to contribute as well. You need Dylan Cousins to get going and other players down the lineup. But, 10 goals is not nothing. They just need to string some more wins together. They've got 3 in a row right now, so we'll see where it goes. But it's a good storyline, and I thought about bringing this one up myself because obviously we'll be tracking this all year.
No, I think absolutely. I called it a crawl, and then it was like Saravalli or someone said it was the pillow fight, and then we ran with that for a while because that was funny. But
that's what it feels like.
I just have to point out that Mary Lemieux had 85 goals in a season, so it just
and 199 points, Harp.
Oh, jeez.
But anyways, I don't really want to go on a huge tangent on Talbot here, but man, that guy is good. Has a good career. I looked back the other day because I watched a Detroit game and he was playing unbelievable, and I'm like, what's he got going on? And I looked back, I'm like, man, what a good career. Can you believe he played 73 games for Edmonton and had a .919 save percentage in a season?
I don't even remember him playing for Edmonton. I remember him backing up in New York. That was when he first came onto the scene, and you were like, this guy is
941 in 21 games backing up. Yeah. But he's had a number of really good seasons, 2 stinkers, but
he's a career 914 I'm looking at just now.
Yes, exactly.
I would say that outside of the time that he spent with the Ottawa Senators, he's been good everywhere he's gone.
Yeah, and that's just the life of a Sens fan, is they just goaltending is
where goalies go to die.
An elusive beast. Well, it's either they go to die or they have a young guy who plays really good or plays okay. They trade him, and then he's the best goalie in the league.
Yeah, so it's like the opposite of Carolina, where goalies go and rejuvenate their careers. Yeah. Seems like every goalie who's gone through Carolina is just a stud.
Yeah,
but everyone in Ottawa just forgets how to play hockey. And listen, Cam Talbot could be the starter for Team Canada, could he not?
Yeah,
at the Four Nations face-off, he's the goalie having the best year of Canadian goalies so far this season. I would say Binnington maybe is up there, but. It's crazy.
Well, Bennington certainly didn't look very good the other night, made that one incredible stick save, but the rest of it wasn't very good. But anyway, the last thing I'll say just about this storyline, watching Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit, which one is going to push through, I would say, we're not throwing Montreal into this because they're not ready. They're clearly not ready. They wanted to compete this year. They wanted to be better this year. Some unfortunate circumstances for them, like Patrick Laine getting hurt and other things, but they're just not ready. I mean, there's no question about it. And then Detroit, I think, is they just don't have as much talent, in my opinion, as Buffalo and Ottawa. And so I really think that it's down to the Sabres and the Senators, between them and which one can push through. And yes, right now, early returns would suggest that Boston would be the first team to fall out. I certainly agree with that. But no, this will be a big storyline to follow all year long in the games between these two teams. And yeah, you're right. Like, points that are there for the taking. Like, Ottawa got absolutely spanked by Buffalo this week. And that was a really good opportunity for the Senators to make a statement, and Buffalo had that against Detroit too. They lost and in their second game against them. So it'll be interesting to see, because one of these three teams has got to pull through at some point. And the pressure is certainly on for this season to be that time.
Yes, for sure. And you're right with Montreal. Like, obviously, they were not expected to compete for a playoff spot, but like they added, and I know Laine's been hurt, but they got Doc back, they got Newhook for a full season, like all these guys. So they were supposed to be better than where they are right now. And they've added a bunch of young players into their lineup as well, but it just hasn't gone right. And I saw someone say the other day after the Toronto Montreal game, I saw someone say, Lane Hudson is averaging over 23 minutes a night for this team, which is crazy, by the way. Like he's a kid, he's playing so much. He's a -8 on the season, but offensively he looks pretty good. But one of the reasons he's playing so much is because I watched him in that game chase around the puck in his own zone for 2 minutes straight, like multiple times. So I heard someone say that, and I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, he's like, this team is getting killed, and the poor kid is just stuck out there on the ice, and they just don't have enough. Like, top to bottom, it's just not enough.
It's always the most insulting thing to me when they throw up at the top of the screen, like shift length, when they're stuck in their own zone, and it's like a minute 37, and they're just like dog tired.
Yeah, just scrambling.
Yeah. Speaking of long shift lengths, Buffalo played Calgary on the weekend and won a shootout. And Kevin Ball had like a 3:47 shift because they were just stuck in their own end from the Sabres. So yeah, but anyway, this is a big storyline to follow as we go on here. And again, with Buffalo, it's like it's the consistency. And for all these teams, like, I mean, year after year for Ottawa, the month of November has been an absolute disaster. And until that win against Boston, it was certainly looking that way. 1-5 on the road, I believe, was their record. So yeah, anyway, we'll continue to keep an eye on this and see which of these three is going to push through finally.